And welcome back. You're watching the news at 10 right here on SABC3. The International Monetary Fund has given Zimbabwe 6 months to pay off its debt. The IMF also wants Harare to commit to policies that it recommended or face expulsion. Zimbabwe owes the IMF $129 million. The organization wants President Robert Mugabe to implement structural reforms. These include privatizing publicly owned enterprises. The IMF has also told Zimbabwe to ensure the respect for property rights and to implement fundamental improvements in the governance sector. However, experts say Zimbabwe won't meet most of these demands. And to find out why this is the case, we're now joined from our Tshwane studios by Sydney Masamvu, who's a consultant at IDASA. Sydney, I welcome you to the news at 10. Now, the IMF has repeatedly made threats to expel Zimbabwe if it doesn't repay its credit loans, if it doesn't meet some of the structural adjustment type requirements. Why don't they just expel Zimbabwe instead of continually making threats, which it seems as though the recommendations are something the Zimbabwean government cannot meet?
I think from the onset, we have to sort of acknowledge that the International Monetary Fund has no watertight case or sort of, one can say, reasonable grounds to expel Zimbabwe based on their articles of association or articles of membership. What I'm trying to point out is when you look at Zimbabwe, it's settled its general resources account in February 2006, and right now it's owing on the PGRF facility. So really, taking politics aside, I don't think the IMF has got a watertight case to expel Zimbabwe. No wonder why in its sort of periodic reviews, the IMF is tried to move on a line of trying to encourage Zimbabwe to embrace reforms with the hope that political reform will lead, subsequently lead to economic reform. So really we are seeing an issue here where politics is at the center stage of the resolution of the Zimbabwe crisis and also the normalization of the Zimbabwe's relationship with the International Monetary Fund.
But essentially those political reforms seem to be the crux of the IMF's argument for further loans or further aid, in the sense that if you improve on the governance agenda, those political conditionalities will essentially create a space for more robust economic activity. Now, on the part of the Zimbabwean government, we have reports of violations of the rule of law, allegations of electoral misconduct and fraud, allegations of the opposition being stumped, questions of accountability, expropriation of businesses and land, flagrant abuses of the very elements that would make for a robust, dynamic and law-guided type of a governing system. And on the basis of that, the IMF, because it's a conditionality, can say, we're going to stop interacting with the Zimbabwean government.
Indeed, you're right in the sense that the Zimbabwe government, has not helped its case either. One would want to refer to, which was quite a telling disclosure by the Reserve Bank Governor of Zimbabwe, Dr. Gideon Gono, when he disclosed that most of the issues, they need to do a course correction at the government level. So in a way, when you look at the behavior of the Zimbabwe government, where the rule of law has been trumped, the issue of property rights has been violated, freedom of speech, freedom of association, all those key elements in the issues of governance have been sort of disregarded willfully. One would like sort of to really conclude that the Zimbabwe government has not helped its cause in trying to realign its relations with sort of the International Monetary Fund.
Okay, let's deal with let's deal with the austerity measures, Sydney. The issue here is that if the government were to implement some of the recommendations imposed by the IMF, it would have severe consequences for the ordinary Zimbabwean person, because if the government doesn't regulate food prices, for instance, and leaves everything to market forces, somebody earning a pittance of a salary now most definitely cannot afford to buy a lot of the foodstuffs which are imported. That's just an example. What are the safety nets that the IMF is putting in place to ensure that were the Zimbabwean government to comply with its recommendations, the ordinary Zimbabwean would not suffer further?
Indeed, you know, the austerity measures which the Zimbabwe government is proposing, you are looking at a government which is in a survival mode, in a way whereby if they let the market forces determine, for example, the exchange rate, the prices of basic commodities, you are seeing a government which is exposing itself to a political upheaval, taking note that we are heading towards, Zimbabwe is heading towards an election, and as such, economics has been put on the back burner. And in a way also, the IMF has also to take the flake insofar that it has not tried to incentivize to say the benchmarks of Zimbabwe's restructuring of the economy are sort of awarded by this financial help, as it were. So in a way, I don't expect at this juncture, and given the political climate obtaining in Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe government sort of embracing the IMF measures of liberalizing the exchange rate and the unfreezing of prices of basic commodities insofar as they sort of scrounge for political survival in the face of mounting political opposition from within and outside, and also declining standards of the ordinary Zimbabweans, which is really leading to a series of work stoppage strikes whereby the local currency is devalued and people cannot afford to make ends meet.
Okay, thanks a lot, Sydney Masamvu, a consultant at IDASA. Thanks for going through some of the IMF recommendations and the pitfalls therein. And Paul has your market update. That's only after the break. Don't you go away.